Vox.com editor Ezra Klein was on CNN's Reliable Sources, and they talked about how maybe the media shouldn't be so focused on Trump rallies. Watch.
Yes, it is all shocking and childish and immature and petulant and cruel. I mean, John McCain is dying. But he's been doing this for years. There's nothing new here. There's nothing new in him calling Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas. There's nothing new in him attacking John McCain. Nothing new in him attacking the Bushes. And yet, whenever Donald Trump wants to change a subject, he just sets up a rally and then goes and says a bunch of crazy stuff. And I do wonder at this point what information is being encoded in that.
Well, this mockery of the Me Too movement, that was new at the rally on Thursday night.
What? Donald Trump's existence is a mockery of the Me Too movement. The fact that he has given rise to a joke, I don't really agree. Like, I don't agree this is new. I'm not attacking, by the way, CNN. Vox covers this too. I cover it. I tweet about it. I want to be super clear here. I am not outside the machine looking in and criticizing it.
Yeah, I understand.
I'm inside the machine looking out and wondering what the hell we're all doing. So, like, I do want to ask the question. One, what are we crowding out when we give these rallies, when we let him decide what we cover every time he does a rally? Right? What are we crowding out? What would have happened in another administration? How long of a story would Scott Pruitt have been?
Right.
How long of a story would Bill Shine have been?
And I'm part of the problem, I think, because I wrote a story titled, "Trump Calls Journalists Bad People at a Rally a Week After a Newsroom Shooting."
I'm actually a little more sympathetic to that specific story.
So I think the argument there is that we need to point out when he's using dangerous rhetoric in the wake of a tragedy. But you know, through his sheer force of talking, right, through the volume of what he says at rallies, it's true he generates dozens of stories that do crowd out other important issues.
I want to be super careful there, because this is a thing I think we do in the media. We put the verbs on him and not on us. Through his sheer force of talking. Like Donald Trump is Black Bolt in Marvel Comics, and every time he opens his mouth, buildings shatter. That isn't how this works. Through our decisions about what to cover, through our outrage at what he is saying, through our belief about what our audience is going to click on, we make these decisions. Look, I am a week and a half back from book leave. I was oceanside in California, and I was pretty far away from all this for a little while I was trying to think about other things in politics. And it's a pretty amazing experience for me. I mean, I've not stepped out of the news cycle for more than 2 weeks in 15 years. The experience of not having it swirling around me I found a pretty profound one. And the experience of coming back, I've been trying to think about how to explain it to people. The experience of coming back is having somebody shouting in your ear all the time. Like having Donald Trump follow you around on Twitter and on the news and everywhere. It's like, look at this thing I've did. Look at it. And you think, oh, that's terrible. Like, why did you do that? I was trying to work on this thing about the economy, but yeah, and then he's like, look at this other one. And it's up to us to decide whether to look. But it is our choice, right? We chose not to cover these things when other presidents did them, these kinds of speeches and rallies in the same way, because we found them boring. We don't find Trump's thing boring. He activates something visceral and human in us, right? It's not boring. I always say that the way Donald Trump behaves would make you worried if it was behavior that you saw in your spouse or your employee or your friend or your neighbor.
But that's why
it speaks to something very normal.
Ezra. That's why it must
I don't
be
agree.
covered.
Not after it stops giving us valuable information.
All it took was a year and a half and Ezra Klein going on a spirit quest in SoCal to finally figure out that covering every Donald Trump rally is maybe not a productive thing for the media to do. You know what? Whatever. Good. I'm glad they are finally waking up. It's just amazing that it took them this long. Now, look, Trump obviously should be covered. I mean, he's the president. But you have to cover like the policies and cover these corrupt people like I think Ezra Klein mentioned there, Scott Pruitt. You have to cover those sorts of things. But to cover every dumbass thing that comes out of Trump's mouth at a rally, look, it's just not news anymore. I think all of us know. If you don't know by now, you should, that Donald Trump is a nut. Donald Trump says crazy things. He says offensive things, and he does it all the time. Covering it is not going to lead to any new revelations. We all already know this. Covering it, all it does is feed his ego and distract from actual stories that need to be covered. Stories on the economy, stories on policies that are being implemented by the Trump administration, stories on people like corrupt people like Scott Pruitt. So that's where the focus should be. And maybe Ezra Klein is, maybe Vox.com now will be better because of this, because of Ezra Klein's Spirit Quest and SoCal. But I don't have as much hope for CNN or MSNBC. Now, Fox News, I don't even address them anymore. They're far gone. But CNN and Fox News, they're going to likely continue covering Donald Trump's weird things that he says. Whether it's a sexist attack on Elizabeth Warren, whether, I don't know, I've lost track myself. I don't really cover Trump. And part of it is because Trump is already so covered already everywhere else that I don't really have anything to add to that conversation. But the other part of it is I just don't find it all that interesting. Don't people know already that Trump is a terrible person? That he's a racist, that he's a sexist, that he's corrupt? That, we know this. So until some actual new information comes out, I have no reason to cover, at least in terms of, policy. But this is, this is what the media does, and it's for clicks. But actually, it's almost funny because when I've covered Trump, and maybe it's because when I've covered Trump, it's been because of policy, but when I cover Trump issues, those videos don't get as many clicks. So I'm actually kind of curious if CNN stopped covering, the Donald Trump rally and focused instead on, I don't know, income inequality or money in politics, political issues. If CNN, MSNBC focused on those things and, websites online as well, if they focused on that a little more than focusing on whatever crazy thing Trump says at a rally, I think they would actually see more traffic. Now, to be fair, I should also, point out, when it comes to papers like the New York Times or the Washington Post, they do a lot of great work. But at the same time, there is this focus on weird shit that Trump says that I don't think that it doesn't even need to be there. But CNN and MSNBC are way out to lunch and are very focused on those tweets, on those horrible comments, and that's where their focus is. So if there's a big story happening, they'll get distracted by Trump saying something stupid and get off that story. And I think Trump knows this. Even though I think Trump is maybe one of the dumbest motherfuckers to ever live, I think he's at least aware of how to control the media. He knows if there is a big scandal happening in his administration, that all he has to do is hold a rally, say some crazy thing about the Me Too movement, and now all of a sudden CNN and MSNBC are now focused on that and not focused on whatever terrible policy the administration is pushing through. So ultimately, I found this conversation kind of enlightening, interesting, uplifting, because it shows that at least maybe there is some self-reflection happening in the mainstream press.